Hello everyone. Today I will be featuring the Tier 8 IGN destroyer, the Akizuki. A DD I featured a couple of times, but I figured with the recent Pan-Asian reveal, I figured it would be a good time to show it again. The matchmaking, not exactly optimal. I mean, it's Tier 10 matchmaking, 3 DDs, a bunch of cruisers, and a carrier. Now, the Akizuki probably deals with the carrier almost the best out of all the DDs. I mean, my build isn't an AFT build, because I of course recommend my DD Hunter build, which involves running Last Stand, Survivability Expert, Concealment Expert, BFT, and IFHE. So we have BFT to boost our AA, but no AFT for additional range. Still though, it does very well against carriers and much better than many other DDs, exceptions being maybe Kid and Grozovoi, and maybe, well, US DDs if you go for some sort of AA builds on them. Now the reason I wanted to feature the Akizuki is with the recent Pan-Asian DD reveal, I think people have been underappreciating just how strong the Akizuki is going to be. Now the Akizuki is a DD that is balanced by its lack of maneuverability. It has an amazing health pool. When you run Survivability Expert, you can see 23.2k health, a massive health pool, and it has insane gun power, especially if you run the DD Hunter build that I recommend, which of course involves slotting BFT and IFHE, which is 10% additional reload, and of course the IFHE means that your HE will actually pen DDs on pretty much every angle, exception being Kaba plates and special things like that. But other than that, it's of course a monster against destroyers. So what is it that makes Pan-Asian DDs special? Deep water torpedoes. And what can't deep water torpedoes hit? The Akizuki. One of the biggest issues when playing the Akizuki and knife fighting other DDs is that you have to be careful about getting too close, because it's large. It's an extremely large destroyer. It has a terrible turning circle, something like 730 meters. It turns and handles like a cruiser. It's also very slow, which makes dodging torps even harder. So one of the balancing things when fighting other DDs in the Akizuki has always been the threat of enemy torpedoes, forcing you to play very safe to make sure you don't end up eating them. Against Pan-Asian DDs, this threat doesn't exist. The torps cannot hit you, which means the Akizuki is going to absolutely feast on any sort of Pan-Asian DD threat. It's going to be absolutely brutal, and I can see myself playing quite a lot of Akizuki, especially since I have it on the Russian server. I mean, I will level Pan-Asian DDs, of course, on my main account, but this is played on the Russian server, and, well, you can see the tier 8 planes are starting to melt. That's, of course, the effect of Akizuki AA plus BFT. And the Edinburgh is also melting, and that's of course the effect of running IFHE on the HE, plus of course the BFT additional reload. And, well, he does smoke up, but I'm still just raining down fire on him. And it looks like I will be able to secure first blood. I am of course running Admiral Yamamoto. Sadly, I do not have a 19-point captain on my Russian server yet. I think this is like 17 or 18. I'll link my recommended build in the comments below. But it's more than effective enough to realize my build already. And with the power, with this build, this DD Hunter build that I really love on the Akizuki, I feel like Pan-Asian DDs are going to be absolute food. They're just going to be food. You're going to see them and you're going to go woo and literally try to rush them, and they will be forced to flee, because Akizuki has so much health and so much firepower that almost no DD can take it on in a fair fight. That's why there's torpedoes to balance. You have to be careful in the Akizuki to not rush any DD, because if they torp you, you're gonna struggle evading their torpedoes because you're so damn clumsy and so damn large. But if there's no torpedo threat, like let's say this Kagero, I just saw him use his torpedoes, so I know there's no threat, so I can just sail right at him with my guns ablazing, and you can see the type of damage this thing does. Like, just how quickly the health pool of this Kagero melted. Like, where did his health go? I broke his engine twice, I set him on fire, he's smoking and turning, but it's already too late. I've already killed him. And that firepower, that insane firepower, is going to be able to be brought to bear in its full strength against Pan-Asian DDs. So I would say that we're gonna see a resurgence when people start realizing just how good the Akizuki is against Pan-Asian DDs. I think we're going to start to see a resurgence of Akizuki play again. I haven't seen too many of them as of late, but with that change, I'm almost certain we're gonna start seeing more of them, because if there's one DD that's exceptionally good at hunting them, it's this guy right here. Bismarck, of course, need to aim for his superstructure, because even with IFHE, the pen isn't really that impressive. You can see how many shatters I'm getting if I'm not hitting his superstructure. Benson pushing in. He wants to brush our gearing? That's certainly a questionable play. Even without me here, this would be a highly questionable play, rushing a gearing. But with me here to support him as well, he's literally being crossfired by a gearing and an Akizuki. That's gonna be... yeah, that was the shortest rush of his life. And they still have a cap advantage, but they've lost 2 DDs at this point, and they only have 1 DD left, so... I would say the advantage is starting to go quite firmly in our favor. Of course, we have an issue though. If we look at the bottom left of the map, well, not bottom left, just the left side of the map, you can see that my team has found a very special way of sailing towards A. And that's of course very common. It's usually battleships. In this case we can see we have an Amagi, a Massachusetts, and a Tirpitz. The Massachusetts is basically just in Alabama. So we have 3 of our battleships are being completely useless on the left flank, and we have a Zao in there kind of being just as useless as they are. North Carolina gives me broadside. That of course means AP. Akizuki AP is very powerful against flat broadsides because, well, because of the DPM mostly. The individual AP shell is not impressive, but the sheer rate of fire that you can pump out is what makes it so very impressive. Some incoming fire, but not really that big of a deal. That was the Shimakaze that shot me. Plus, I think something behind me might have been the Zao. Not really that big of a deal. I dropped torps, dual-purpose torps. I might hit the North Carolina, I might hit the Shimakaze, I might hit nothing, but considering how limited the Akizuki is on torpedoes, it's always worth going for it. See if we can get a fire on this North Carolina. He is giving a lot of broadside to my battleships down here though. I don't expect him to live very long. Someone setting a fire. I already see AP shells in the air, that's probably going to be the end of him. Actually, he might just burn to death before my torps can even reach him, and he does burn to death, which is a shame since I think my torps could have been quite good. But yeah, and our Kagero is AFK as well, so we actually only have 2 DDs, me and the gearing is almost going down. So the game might not be as clear-cut yet, unless if the gearing maybe kills the Atago, then it's pretty clear-cut. Nope. Okay, so the game isn't really that clear-cut, because note we still only have 1 cap, and the Atago is now going to use the gearing smoke to cap it. So that's certainly unfortunate. And most importantly, my team is playing very, very safe, especially my A team, considering they are facing what looks like 1 Kutuzov and the carrier, and they are struggling to cap A from that. So this is still going to be a bit of a struggle of a game. But the Akizuki, I almost have full health. I got like 3/4, and there's only a Shimakaze left for me to fight. I don't think they have any radars left, so I'm more than willing to take this fight. Shimakaze, I melt this guy. Gunpowder, he has 21k health. Well, he had 21k health, and just this sheer amount of gunpowder. Like, if this was a Pan-Asian DD, I wouldn't have to slow down and try to dodge torps, as I'm forced to do now. I could just rush him. You see that I'm turning away? The only reason I turn away is, of course, his torpedoes. I have to take into account his torpedoes and my terrible maneuverability. If this was a Pan-Asian DD, I would have continued sailing right towards him, guns a-blazing, and he would already be dead. And I think this is very, very important, because that highlights a huge weakness that the Pan-Asian DDs have, and that is the vulnerability to the Akizuki. The only reason I did the maneuver I did there and dodged, the only reason this guy is still alive is because of that torpedo threat. And I did manage to dodge all the torps, but of course that forced me to let him get away. Well, not entirely, but it allowed him to create a lot of distance, and it forced me to keep only 2 guns on target instead of all 4 of my turrets. So in that sense, that 21k health would have melted a long time ago. And that's exactly the same thing you'll see on Pan-Asian DDs as well. And I think this is... it's going to be brutal. It's going to be a lot of fun, because I don't think a lot of people are taking this into account. That the only thing that's really balancing out the Akizuki when it comes to fighting other DDs is the incredible clumsiness of the destroyer itself, and that clumsiness of course means the high possibility of eating torpedoes, and with that threat entirely gone, it's going to be a fun time. Focus firing the bomber that's coming my way. I'm not really too worried about it because, I mean, BFT, Akizuki AA with BFT, and I think running the flag. Even though you only have 6 km AA range, you still do 110 DPS. Plus, when I focus fire a squad, it gives me 30% additional DPS. So these tier 8 planes, they melt quite comfortably. The Shimakaze is still fleeing. I think he might go down. Yep, he goes down to the Massachusetts. I haven't actually featured the Massachusetts on my channel, I think, but that's because it's completely uninteresting. It's the most uninteresting battleship in the game. It's a slightly tweaked Alabama. That's pretty much it. There's really nothing else to it. Shooting the NC, waiting to see, going into the cap before I smoke up, and I'm waiting to see if his guns are turning. He is turning his ship and his guns, so this is when I pop my smoke. The Mogami might be able to use my smoke as well, which is of course an additional benefit. That is if he actually uses it and doesn't sail past my smoke. Oh, shots out, but the NC is shooting HE. Oh no. This is the syndrome I've been seeing a lot as of late. And I blame Royal Navy battleships for this. People see Royal Navy battleships shoot HE, so they think that's a good idea, so they start shooting HE instead. And it's especially painful when you see ships like the North Carolina that has such excellent AP. You see the North Carolina wasting its potential by instead shooting HE. It just makes me sad, because NC is one of my favorite battleships, and NC AP is brutally powerful, and watching him throw away that potential because he saw a Royal Navy battleship shoot HE, it just makes me sad, and it just highlights even more the need for tutorials in this game to just teach these people that please don't do this. The AP power is of course absolutely absurd on the Akizuki. It's a shame I don't have Adrenaline Rush, since then at this point I'd have something like 7-8% faster reload as well. But I don't have the captain points yet. I need to grind the full 19-point captain, and I think once the Pan-Asian DDs come out, I will be more than happy to grind some Akizuki captain points on Russia, because I think it will be quite enjoyable, and it will be quite a shock for a lot of them, I think, because people are so used to the Akizuki being forced to maintain a distance and avoid the knife fight, because if you go into a knife fight against any DD that can torp you in the Akizuki, you will lose, because it's so easy to torp this guy. 730 meter, was it even worse, turning circle, it handles like a brick. So it's always been an easy target to torpedo, and Akizuki captains have long since learned that the only way to avoid being torped is to avoid the knife fights in general, and that's not going to be an issue anymore, and that's going to be a reason for some very fun Akizuki games, I think, because usually when a new line comes out, everyone is going to be playing it, and I can only imagine what it's going to be like playing Akizuki when the enemy has like 2, 3, 4 Pan-Asian DDs, and you rush in there and kill all of them, and there's nothing they can do about it. Very much looking forward to that aspect. North Carolina gets killed. Focus fire down some of these planes. I still could I get the Kraken? Kind of difficult to get the Kraken at this point. I am running Yamamoto, so Kraken would give me a nice reload boost, and of course some healing. Not that it's that necessary. Atago is... oh, he's trying to peek around the corner to shoot me. So I turn in, because I want... the closer I get to the island, the more I block of his front guns. You see, at this point, his front guns can no longer shoot me. And I'm more than willing to trade all my firepower against his back guns only. This kind of firepower, I'll happily take this trade. You see, he's trying to reverse, but I keep pushing in. I want to keep his front guns behind the island. I want to make sure that his front guns can't reach me. And this Atago is so greedy to kill me. His front guns hit the island, his back guns does a fair amount of damage, but in comparison to the amount of damage I've been raining down on him with this AP on his broadside, he easily goes down. And that was not a good trade for him to take. He was trying to be smart by taking pot shots around the island, but ultimately he really had no chance. Atago. I could open up fire on him now, but I think I'm gonna get undetected first. Turn my guns around, and maybe if he's forced to give broadside, we can use some AP on him. However, the Kutuzov dies, so suddenly we gain an absolute shit ton of points, and it looks like this game is actually going to end before I have time to do too much more. Yeah, we're gaining points too fast. Will my shells even land? Barely have time to land, and the game already ends. And this was a, well, tier 10 matchmaking, but honestly they didn't have too many tier 10s. 16 planes shot down. You can have a lot more if you go full AA build, but I always prefer this more balanced build where you're exceptionally good at killing DDs and taking map control, and you have enough AA to defend yourself if need be. That's always been the point of this build, and I think this game kind of showcased the strengths of this build quite well. I think this was my daily win, hence the 12k XP. If we look at, I only got 2 partial caps, nothing more actually. I probably could have gotten a lot more. If we look at the detailed report though, 3.1k base XP. I'm pretty sure I could have gotten a lot more base XP if I'd gotten some solo caps in here. Probably could have even approached 3.5k, which would have of course been quite impressive. I think we had an AFK Lexington and an AFK Kagero. So this game we were playing with 1 DD down and without our carrier, which usually is a huge issue for a destroyer, but for the Akizuki, not really that big of a deal. It can cope really, really well. So overall, I don't know, Azao got 1k. Wow, that's a bit underwhelming. But overall though, the Akizuki is a very strong DD. I love this ship, and against Pan-Asian, I think it's going to be hilarious. Detailed report wise, not surprisingly, not a single torpedo hit. This happens sometimes, and that's of course the Akizuki. While it is a hybrid boat, meaning it's both a torp and a gunboat, it's obviously primarily a gunboat. And if you needed an example, well, this game right here, 120k damage, 3.1k base XP, not a single torpedo landed. So yeah, very strong gunboat. I can't be arsed showing my recommended build again because I've shown it like a million times. I'll just link you guys my previous Akizuki commentary, and you can find my recommended build at the end. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I think this video will prompt a lot of people to realize just how much fun the Akizuki is about to become. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. I hope you guys have a good one.